Sam Elliot. You won't believe the quiet storm that's been gathering behind the cowboy hat until now. Sam Elliot. He's the voice you feel in your chest before you even see his face. Slow, gravelly, built from a lifetime of ranch roads and small-town honesty. For 60 years, he's been the embodiment of a certain kind of American man, reserved, steady, and hard as leather. But underneath that calm, there's been a simmering fury, not aimed at the world at large, but at a handful of actors and industry moves he thinks have cheapened the thing he loves most: authentic storytelling. He kept his silence for 4 years. At 80, he's done holding back. And when you hear who's on his list, it's going to change how you hear him, and maybe how you see some of them. Kevin Costner. Sam's gripe with Costner isn't personal in the tabloid sense, it's about authenticity. Sam grew up with the real West, the dust, the early mornings, the work that leaves your hands a different color. To him, that's not a costume you can slip on. So when he watched Costner play frontier legends and modern ranch patriarchs, what bothered Sam wasn't talent. It was polish. He saw performances that felt curated, staged, and glossy, beautifully lit postcards instead of weathered truth. When offered a cameo in a popular ranch drama years later, he turned it down. His refusal wasn't petty, it was a statement. If the West is framed like a soap opera in a cowboy hat, he didn't want to lend it his badge. Benedict Cumberbatch. Here's where things got loud. Sam's reaction to a contemporary, critically praised Western drama and its lead was brutal and public. He didn't temper his words. He questioned whether a refined British actor could capture the weight and silence of an American ranch hand. That critique spiraled fast. Social feeds lit up, fans rallied, and critics called Sam out as stuck in the past. But listen to the tone here. This wasn't a cheap shot at known, an individual's background, so much as a defense of a tradition. Sam argued the film turned a kind of stoicism into something fragile and clinical, and he said as much, bluntly. The backlash stung, but he didn't backtrack. For him, this was about protecting a craft that, to his mind, depends on quiet truth more than theatricality. Ashton Kutcher. If you ask Sam what angers him about the modern scene, he'll point to celebrity as currency. Kutcher represents a new breed. Famous, savvy, platform first. He climbed from sitcom fame to Hollywood rom-com success, and then into Silicon Valley's boardrooms. Sam respects hustle, but he distrusts spectacle, masquerading as dedication. When they worked together, Sam didn't make a scene. He just kept his distance. He admired the man's kindness and drive, but couldn't shake the feeling that acting had become a sidecar to branding for people like Kutcher, more about metrics and image than the patient digging a role often requires. To Sam, that's not evolution, it's erosion. Nicolas Cage. Sam's ideal of acting is the opposite of fireworks. For him, a glance or a breath can hold more power than a monologue. Nicolas Cage's career, electric and unpredictable, sits at the other end of that spectrum. Cage's full-throttle choices, bigger than life, at times theatrical, left Sam uneasy. Where Cage sees liberation in release and intensity, Sam sees a kind of shouting that crowds out subtlety. They worked on the same projects, but Sam kept his distance, valuing restraint and a steady hand over any performance that feels like a circus. It's not denial of Cage's originality. Sam just believes the most enduring performances come from pulling the viewer in quietly, not pushing them away. Jeff Bridges. This one cuts deep because it's personal. Bridges and Elliot once seemed carved from the same slab of stone, two men who carried grit and humility, like old badges. They shared laughs, scenes, and a mutual rhythm that made their work sing. But over time, Bridges' path shifted. Awards, glossy profiles, a different spotlight. Sam watched a friend move into environments that felt curated and distant from the simplicity they both once treasured. There was no dramatic falling out, just a slow drifting. For Sam, the pain wasn't jealousy. It was the ache of losing a brother to a world he no longer recognized. Sometimes, the greatest wounds are the ones that aren't fought over, they're simply lived through. Jared Leto. Method acting, when done honestly, can be a marvel. But when it becomes spectacle, when the process calls attention to itself more than the story, Sam bristles. Leto's extreme choices, the headlines about on-set theatrics, and the endurance tactics that eat up the margins between performance and personality. Those things felt, to Sam, like theater pretending to be art. He respects craft that serves the film, not stunts that serve the actor. If acting is supposed to vanish into truth, then anything that distracts from the story is a betrayal of the audience. So, what ties these names together? It's not malice, it's a creed. Sam Elliott's anger isn't about being bitter or refusing change. He's defending a particular idea of what performance should be. Quiet, earned, and rooted in lived experience. He sees a film or a scene and believes it should carry the weight of a life, not the sheen of a trending headline. And while the industry evolves new voices, new tools, new audiences, Sam wants to make sure we don't lose what makes a story honest. And maybe that's what makes Sam Elliott so fascinating. In a world that rewards noise, he's built a legacy on silence. No viral scandals, no clickbait drama, just the work. The deep, lived-in kind of acting that doesn't scream for attention but stays with you long after the credits roll. He's the guy who never needed reinvention because he was never pretending to be anything else. Every line he delivers carries the weight of decades spent paying attention to the land, to people, to the pauses between words. That's the kind of truth you can't fake. And it's the reason audiences trust him even when they don't agree with him. And yet, beneath all that toughness, there's something deeply human about the way Sam fights for what he believes in. He's not trying to drag Hollywood backward. He's trying to hold on to the parts that made it matter in the first place. The parts where storytelling was sacred, where actors lived their roles instead of marketing them, where emotion came from memory, not method. He's that rare breed of old-school artist who sees the craft not as a job, but as a promise to honor truth, even when the world doesn't care much for it anymore. Here's the thing. You can argue with him. You can point to reinvention, risk, and the brilliance of actors who break molds. You can say the West can be reimagined, that method can illuminate, or that a polished production can still hold truth. But Sam's perspective is a reminder that craft matters, and that sometimes the quiet, steady choices are the hardest to pull off, and the easiest to forget. If you loved the grit in this take, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into the people who shape the stories we binge, love, and argue about. Tell us, who do you think gets acting right? Those who burn bright, or those who smolder slow? Drop your thoughts below. The best conversations start with an honest disagreement.